As some of the speakers have talked about, the UAE has its own cybercrime laws, and I'm going to talk about that. So in 2012, the UAE authorities enacted Federal Law Number 5, the Cybercrimes Law. This law made it an offense to use any information technology systems to commit certain activities. The Cybercrimes Law prohibits a wide range of activities. There's actually 51 articles in the particular law. But today, at this point, I'll only be discussing two areas, defamation and privacy. And the reason why I picked those two things, when I was preparing for this particular talk, we were looking at, as you may have figured out, we took global and then more regional, and now we're in the local piece of the presentation. When I was looking at what was in the news in the past couple of years in the UAE consistently, and there was always somebody being charged with cybercrime for posting something that was not correct or offensive. So because there was so much in the media, I thought, well, I think people really don't understand what the cybercrime with respect to posting online means for people that are working in the area. And the other reason why is looking at statistics for the UAE online users in 2016, 46% of people that live in the UAE have an active social media account on their mobile devices. So what does that mean? People are on social media all the time, so we need to have this information. So given this context, it is important for people doing business in the UAE to be familiar with the legal risks for anyone in their organization that posts online. So I'm probably one of those people too, because I'm posting and doing stuff. So just to give you some overview of what these two areas say. Okay, historically, the UAE has always had private, strong defamation and privacy laws. Other countries classify defamation as a civil offense. Here in the UAE, it's a criminal matter. The Penal Code makes it an offense to publish information that exposes another person to public hatred or contempt, or to make a false accusation which dishonors or discredits another person. The fact that this published information may be true is not necessarily defense. So if you happen to post something like this, under the Penal Code, the penalty would be 2 years in jail and up to $5,500 fine, or 20,000 dirhams. The cybercrimes law similarly protects people from defamation because it additionally adds the offense that if you insult someone or accuse another person of an act which subjects them to the contempt of others, that would be a violation. Penalties for that include up to 136,000 or 500,000 AED fine. So these are serious amounts. So I always like to put some examples in my talk, otherwise it gets really boring for me. So this goes to the issue of how defamation issues come up, and this really happened. There was an employee that worked for an Abu Dhabi company. He went on leave. While on leave, for whatever reason, he decides he wants to extend his leave. So he calls up his employer, has a talk. Employer says, no, you can't have that extra leave. The employee is very angry. Now remember, the employee's in the US, he's a resident of the UAE, he works for an Abu Dhabi company. So he gets upset. So what does he do? He goes onto his Facebook group closed page. And he goes on there and he's just straightly upset. He calls the employer names, calls him backstabber, tells people in the closed group who happen to work at this place, don't trust these people, they will backstab you, they will tell you things, they don't take it back. And he's going on and on. And during this whole thing, at some point, he insults Arabs by using a racial slur. Closes up, whatever. He goes back to work, so he thinks. When he goes to work, they basically say to him, you need to visit the police. He goes to the police say, oh, screenshot of what he said. And they said, oh, by the way, you're under arrest for a defamation charge filed by your employer. Okay? Now, he was in his place in the US doing stuff. So how did it end? The employee was horrified. He apologized, and he got U.S. authorities come on speak on his behalf, he broke the law in the UAE. Doesn't matter whether or not you're someplace else. If you defame a person and come back to the UAE, you will have to call for that. So he got authorities to help him, and he was released. But it's a really serious thing. So if someone ever asks you about defamation, how can you sort of figure out what it is in a really quick way? You could tell them, whatever you're going to post, look at the comment and look at the material you're posting. Is it damaging to the reputation of a person or a company? If it's anywhere close, tell that person, do not send that particular email or post or whatever it is. Okay, the other area I wanted to talk about was the privacy. Post that invades personal privacy. Under the Penal Code, disclosing secrets related to someone's private life without their consent is an offense. That will get someone a penalty of 1 year in jail, and again, $5,455 fine or 20,000 dirhams. There's also a provision in the cybercrimes law that prohibits these same activities, but in this particular section of the law, it expands the list of what is prohibited. Things you cannot do that could invade somebody's privacy, which includes using any IT systems to eavesdrop, intercept, record, or disclose conversations or communications. And this disclosure can be, you take a video of somebody, or you tape somebody and you load it up so people can see it online. Also, the particular provision prevents taking a photograph of someone without their permission. Now, I've been sitting here, and I've seen people take pictures of people here. Now, if you took that picture and you uploaded it online without getting permission, technically, you may be charged with an invasion of privacy. Okay? So, I mean, there's a lot of little things that people don't really know about. And so if you do one of those things I just mentioned, the fine would be, the penalty would actually be 6 months in jail and $136,000 fine or 500,000 dirham fine. Now, still the same article really, really wants to make sure that people's privacy rights are protected, so it has another provision. It basically says, if you take a photo or a record and you change it, Photoshop it, or amend it, and then publish it, and you're caught, the penalty is quite severe, a year in jail and up to $136,000 fine. So privacy is a big issue here. Now, I have another example of how defamation privacy has actually come up in real life here. There's a car accident. Driver 1, driver 2. Apparently driver 2 tried to go between the cars or slither in or something, but anyway, he hit driver 1. They both stop at the side of the road, which everybody does in the UAE. Driver 1 gets out of his car. Driver 2 gets out of his car. Driver 1's really upset, starts physically attacking driver 2. And that goes on, and apparently driver 2 was crying, wanting to apologize, whatever. That went on until passerby 1, God knows where he came from, and separated them. How do we know where this happened? Driver 3, who knows where he came from? He takes out his little phone, watches the whole thing. Then he goes home, puts it on his YouTube, uploads it. Well, didn't take too long for a lot of people to see it. So what happens? The police go and pick up driver 1 for assault, and they also pick up driver 3 because driver 1's family said, you have defamed Mr. Driver 1 because 1, you didn't get permission to photograph him, let alone upload it, and you invaded his privacy because you took his picture. And once it was uploaded, he was held up to humiliation and contempt. Here's this guy beating up this guy who's doing nothing. So how did it end? Driver 2, the guy that was being beaten up, refuses to press charges against driver 1, so the assault charge goes. Now, we still have the defamation, invasion of privacy charge against driver 3, the guy that drove up and took pictures of all of it. Well, the family decides of driver one, we're not going to go forward. So he gets off. Well, he's not prosecuted. However, in the entire process, what comes out? Well, obviously the identity of people recognize driver one. And he happens, unfortunately for him, to be a senior government employee. His employer let him go. So now, this is just a regular car accident happening. I'm not condoning anybody's behavior, but I'm just saying is people use their phones for everything. They need to know this information. So the point of all of this is, how do employers help, or counsel help their client employers, help them to understand these things? Well, the first thing, I have four little points. One is what you're all doing here, is you're listening, learning about the law, learning about specifics. Maybe you'll go dig out cyber law federal law number 5 of 2012, and you'll see all the different articles, and you can pick out exactly what I'm talking about. You're learning about it. So what happens is you need to learn it, and you need to instruct and educate your employees so that they know they just can't take a picture of him and then post it. That they'll know there's consequences. There's civil and there's criminal consequences for doing things like that. Second one is the best way to educate your employees: IT, social media, usage policies. What are the do's and don'ts of the company's policy? What is it? And also, the third part is, what happens if I decide to take pictures of people and post them or write horrible things about them, besides me being prosecuted? What is the consequence at work? So you need a code of conduct or a discipline policy that goes specifically to those particular issues. And finally, it's great to have policies and procedures. You have to enforce them. Now, remember, maybe you don't remember, but I mentioned that there is a right to privacy, that you cannot intercept and you can't look at other people's conversations or communications. So you as an employer, if you want to monitor, you have to get consent from your employees and say, we need to monitor to ensure that our IT policy is being followed. The person signs it, there you go. And with that, I'll leave you. Thank you very much.